Tonight we're going to talk about it's called an Iynx wheel, or more specifically a Jinx wheel. Iynx. It is pronounced Jinx. This is the etymology of the word we use, Jinx, today. So you can say either Iynx or Jinx. Both are correct. This is a tool that I really haven't seen in the community too much. I saw a few on Etsy a while back. I almost got one that someone made, but life kind of caught up to me, and thankfully I made my own, which I recommend everybody do. It's a really good, fun practice for you. Plus, it helps you connect with the spirit of the Jinx. So, to start, if you have your book with you, this is going to be on page 118. So that's where the Jinx wheel is covered. So, kind of go over the history of it. Basically, in the Greek sense, it was typically only associated with love and love spells, conjuring and bringing forth lovers. Sarita Dieste does mention this in her books. I love her books. As you know, I've referenced them many times in mine. So it's very, very invaluable resource to your library. So basically the concept is the Jinx is named after a type of woodpecker called a wryneck. The reason why this became a magical tool was the wryneck, when it's mating, it twists its head around and it attracts mates. So that's that whirling motion as it's singing. It's almost like a flute-like noise is calling out to potential mates, and it's attracting to them. So when the early Greek witches saw this, they thought, oh, that's a great motion to put in our magic, so we'll use that to draw lovers too. Most of the poetic descriptions we have of the Jinx wheel actually deals with love specifically. It isn't until the Chaldeans where we start seeing it used more cosmically, but we'll kind of get to that in a second. So basically, there's the account that we really know of where it mentions Hekate specifically. They actually describe a sort of sphere that encircles a sapphire or a lapis that's whirled around to produce a noise. So this is typically going to be more towards a bull roar, if you know what that is. It's basically a piece of wood attached to some kind of cord, and you whirl it around. So towards you would draw near, away from you would push away. So that was kind of reduced to the Jinx wheel as far as size goes. So basically the movement of that sphere would produce a hum or a whirling sound, and the movement of the Jinx wheel coupled with that sound was what gave it the power. So it needs to have both in order to work. The concepts behind the actual object, they think that it might come from the drop spindle. So there's a little like a spindle wheel at the bottom of a drop spindle that could be detached. That's actually used to spin thread. So early witches, especially female witches who were concerned with love, they would cast their magic while they were weaving thread or spinning thread. So what they would do is they would use that spinning motion of the drop spindle to cast their magic. So again, it would be the same concept of sending out that energy in the whirling. You could take that off and attach it to cords and spin it, and that kind of turned into what we now know as the Jinx wheel. Once the Chaldeans come in, so the Chaldeans are primarily inspired by, as far as the Jinx wheels go, they're inspired by Plato's myth of Ur. If you haven't read that, it's at the end of Plato's Republic. It's a phenomenal story. Basically, this soldier, it recounts the tale. A soldier tells of him dying, and he doesn't drink from the river of forgetfulness, and he remembers everything that happened in the afterlife. And the Chaldeans saw that, and they applied what he saw as far as the 8 spheres that each celestial sphere has a siren that sings a tune, and they would course around the spindle of necessity, producing that tune, and then the harmony basically maintained creation. So that turned into, the Chaldeans saw the Jinx wheel, and they said, we're going to apply that to this. the science is sound. So it's basically like to the theurgist, it becomes a mini cosmos. So this becomes a little tiny microcosm of basically creation. So this is why it creates that magic, why it's attached to the cosmos. So that's basically the Cliff Notes version of it. I don't kind of want to get into the complete history just because it does get really complicated and long. But ideally what you want, you can either use a bull roar type instrument. So you can find these all over Etsy. In fact, I just ordered one made out of oak that's completely unfinished. So I'm going to kind of make it into something of my own. The only thing with a bull roar is you do have to wind it, and if you don't have space, it's going to cause problems. You can also get wooden spheres. If you have any kind of tools for like turning wood, you can carve into a hollow wooden sphere to make the actual spherical one. And then you can put like a sapphire or lapis in it. But the one that I think most people are going to be able to make and actually use in their practice is the traditional, disc-shaped Jinx wheel. So before I show you mine, I'm going to show you kind of, so in the book, I mentioned that you should make it between 6 to 8 inches, something around there, 6 to 9 inches. So originally, when I was going to craft mine, I was going to use a piece of wood like this. This is what I recommend because it is going to make a louder noise for you. These are really cheap. Again, you can get them from any kind of craft store. I like wood just because it's easier to use. You don't need a lot of tools for it. You can really make it your own. It's easy to paint. The paint's not going to, come off or anything. Yeah, you could use large buttons, especially if they're made out of bone. It's going to be the same concept. So basically, once the magical associations with the Jinx wheel were detached, it actually became a toy. So it, especially if you're from like the Ozark area, it's really popular. It's called the whirligig or the buzzsaw toy. You can also find those online, but those will typically be made out of resin or plastic. I personally wouldn't use it just because I like the feel of the wood and the workability of wood. But if that's what you have access to, it's going to be the same thing. What you're going to do is, now another couple options, you can go a little smaller than this, so this is going to make the best noise, but so the one that I made is actually one of these. So this is actually a, I believe, 4-inch circle, but there's a reason why I use this size. If I didn't create mine the way I did, I would have went with a bigger one. But ideally you want the 6-inch or bigger. Some people can use metal, so you can get little copper discs like this. If you have the tools to do it, I would do it with metal. I haven't heard what metal sounds like, so I can't tell you how the sound is going to be, but I actually had this little copper disc engraved with her symbol, the symbol of the cult of the Witch Queen, and then the regular Hekate's wheel on the other side. I actually went with the actual motif that's on the Mycenaean button, but you can do like any kind of version that you want. So I suppose if you had a tool that you can drill through metal, that would also work. One of the things is if you do just the 2 tools for the cord, and you don't do any kind of like serrated edge or holes in it, it's not going to produce really that much sound. So keep that in mind if you're going to use something like metal. So I've obviously experimented a lot with these as I was making it. Some things work, some things don't. So I kind of want to share with you our process, what we did, and then what worked and what didn't. First of all, when you have your wood, the spacing of the 2 holes that go in the center. So the easiest way to do this, because I'm not good at math, so I had no idea how to find the center of a circle. So I just traced this, cut it out of paper, and folded it into quarters. Gave me exactly where I need to put the 2 holes. The wider the holes are, I found that the harder it is to get it going. So we have it so it's about a 1/2 inch apart. So the 2 holes in the middle are about a 1/2 inch. So that's going to give you the best workability for the Jinx wheel. Around it, so if you read the description of mine in the book, I'll show you mine now, I guess. So here's the one that I use. Let's see if I can get it closer. So as you see, it's got the symbols around the middle. So I have the planetary symbols, which you really can't probably see on the video, but the planetary symbols are in between each of these. The planetary symbol for the sun is actually makes up the middle right there. And then I have the other 6 around there. So these are kind of an addition. It makes a cool noise when it's spinning. I think it adds just a little bit to the sound, but you know, that could just be something that's in my head. But so the cord, you want a nice, sturdy cotton or natural fiber string. I haven't used anything like nylon or you know, polyester string or anything like that, so I can't tell you if that works better. It might, because it might lower the friction of what you would get in something like cotton. But I've done different qualities of cotton cord. I've done a thinner one. So the original one that I wanted to do when I was making this, it was actually red, a black, and a white cotton cord braided together. It was going to look so cool, and I was so happy. But the second I pulled it, it broke, and it didn't really spin right. So I had to just bite the bullet and go with just a regular black cotton string. Now the string you can change. Obviously, sometimes they do break. It is going to wear out a little bit. The spirit of the Jinx, for me personally, is actually in the wheel itself. So once you get this created, once you get everything you want on it, and you have it ready to go, what you would do is you'd consecrate it. So I use the consecration incense, and then you kind of just, as you would any kind of ritual charm or object, you spend time with it. You basically offer to it. I usually have this little cup right here. So this is my offering cup that I do for any kind of like spiritual stuff. And then you kind of get like a vibe that it's awake and it's going to work for you. Another thing to keep in mind when you are using it, you can just use your fingers through the string, but that actually really hurts. So what I use is I have these 2 coyote bones. So these are what I use to get it spinning. So once you figure out how to get it spinning, it's actually really easy, and it will basically start itself. But if you're using it ritually, so you can do the vowels. So basically each of the Greek vowels corresponds to a classical planet. So what you would do is you would basically hum or repeat that vowel as you're winding it up. So towards you again is evoking, and spinning it outwards is sending it away. So I'm not going to do it now because I'm not going to ritually conjure anything for the video. But so as you can see, even that little motion, it gave it a good spin. So if you're conjuring something and you're spinning it towards you, you're doing your ritual, you're feeling the tension. So if you do it too much, see how it like kind of went uneven like that? That means that it's kind of met its resistance. And then once you're good, you just kind of give it a little pull, and it's going to just spin. So it's kind of like a motor starting up, and then it should start producing the noise. So it's super easy. I don't know if you can hear it. So the faster you pull it, the louder it's going to get. And that whirling is, so the spinning is the cosmos, the sound is calling out, so it's calling to the spirits that you want to pull in. It's drawing down whatever god or entity you want to commune with. So a bowlore, if you're using that, it is going to be a lot louder, so it will produce a really high, loud sound that you can actually hear, you know, into the distance. But yeah, and then it just stops. So typically, like, once you actually use it for a little while, what's going to happen is the cord itself is going to kind of maintain a natural twist. So really, like, if you're not using it to really, you know, conjure anything, and you're just using it to send out your intentions, you just grab it off your altar, and all you have to do is just flick it a few times, and it's just going to wind itself. So you don't even really have to wind it, so it's just going to do it. And then it's really easy to get it going. So this is the only one I've ever made. I don't know what the serrated edge is going to sound like. I don't know if like adding other things to it is going to make it sound any different. You can easily make it your own. You can experiment with it. But I would do it before you consecrate it or try to wake it up. I would kind of, these little things on the outside, we were kind of inspired by hand drums with the chains inside. I kind of like that noise that it gives it. Actually, my husband Alan put those on there for me. So, but yeah, they're really, really easy to use. It's just about experimenting, finding the right material and the right cord to actually do it with. But once it gets started, I will tell you, the longer your ritual is, you will start to feel it in your shoulders. So especially if you're trying to get a really loud noise, if you do it gently, it will still make a noise. So this is like basically effortless pulling on the cord. It's still making that noise, but like when I'm doing rituals or spell work and it gets pretty intense, I find myself really trying to make it make noise. And then your shoulders do start getting a little tired. So they will kind of hurt a little bit. But another thing I'll mention is try to stay within that 4 feet that I say for the cord, because anything bigger than that, it's not going to be as loud because it's not going to spin as fast. It's going to take a little bit more resistance to get it moving really fast. But yeah, and this is one of those things where it is technically a familiar of yours for working. So if you're in your, like I'm in my altar room and, I constantly am in here just communicating with it and working it. So, basically doing this. It's kind of like a fidget spinner, a spiritual fidget spinner. So, yeah, so that's basically the gist of that. You can celebrate it on the day that you create it. So if you want to mark that on your calendar and just even give it a little offering, reconsecrate it in incense, stuff like that. That can actually be very beneficial to your relationship with it. And then just try to incorporate in your practice how you see fit. There really isn't, a right or wrong. Again, it's one of your spirits, so it might treat you different than it will treat someone else. So, find what works best for you. Find a method of using it that you're going to connect with that's easy for you to maintain. Like all the tools, it has to be something that you can actually develop and incorporate. If not, it's just going to be a waste of time. But I can tell you this is an actual really fun tool to have. It's a really powerful tool to have, especially when you're in that trance state of ritual. So I highly recommend doing this. Everything you can get is really cheap. The reason why I did this size instead of the bigger one is because we have a laser engraver and the bigger one wouldn't fit in there, and I really wanted to get the symbols and everything on there really nice. So we went with the smaller one. So that's why this is smaller than what it says in the book. But this is the one that I described. Works perfect. What I did was I mixed the mahogany varnish, got it nice and shiny, did some gold details, and it's good to go. So it doesn't have to be exactly like this. You can actually just leave it simple wood. You can anoint it with oils, so make a consecration oil or something like that that you actually rub it with. That would be perfect. So we're actually, my little sister, she has a shop in upstate New York, well, central New York, and she actually is going to be doing a Halloween ball, and I'm doing a ritual, and I'm actually going to be giving these to a bunch of the people doing the ritual so that we can have people pulling in and sending out that energy that we